Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, today we're getting into something fascinating. We're exploring this huge global intellectual engine that, well, it powered science for centuries. Think math, medicine, astronomy,
Mm.
major revolutions.
Right.
But the language driving that engine, it's probably not the one you'd immediately guess.
Yeah, it's one of those historical facts that feels almost hidden in plain sight sometimes. I mean, the source material we looked at is really clear on this.
Extremely clear.
For what, over 700 years, roughly 8th century to the 15th, if you were a serious scientist? If you wanted to be on the cutting edge, publish research, access the best knowledge,
You needed Arabic.
you absolutely needed to read and write in Arabic. It was effectively the global science language. Like
Right.
English is for us today.
That really reframes things for a lot of us, I think. So our mission today, for you listening, is to unpack how that happened.
Yeah.
How did Arabic go from being, mainly a language of faith, of culture, to becoming the absolute bedrock of global science?
Yeah, how did they build that engine? Where did the fuel come from?
Yep.
And, well, the fuel initially, anyway, came from pretty much everywhere. We have to start in the 8th and 9th centuries. Baghdad. Under the Abbasid Caliphs, this is where the translation movement really kicked off.
Right, the translation movement. And this wasn't just like scholars casually collecting a few books, was it?
Oh, no, not at all. This was systematic, state-sponsored, a huge organized effort to translate, well, basically every important piece of knowledge they could get their hands on from every civilization they knew.
Every single one.
Greek, Persian, Indian texts, you name it. Medicine, math, astronomy, philosophy, the scale was just immense.
And the hub for all this activity was the Beit al-Hikmah, the House of Wisdom.
That's it, the House of Wisdom in Baghdad. Picture like a combination of a world-class research center, a massive library, and a dedicated translation institute all rolled into one.
Wow.
The sources tell us rulers sent scholars out across the known world specifically to hunt down manuscripts.
Actively hunt them down.
Yeah. And once they got back to Baghdad with these texts, the drive to get them translated into Arabic was enormous. It was a top priority.
I read something in the sources, an anecdote that really stuck with me, about how much they valued this knowledge. It wasn't just intellectual curiosity, it was economic almost.
Oh, definitely. Knowledge was a valuable commodity. There's documentation suggesting some top translators weren't just paid a salary. They were sometimes paid the weight of the translated manuscript in gold.
Your weight in gold. Seriously.
Seriously, that kind of investment tells you this wasn't just a side project. This was like a critical state level or caliphal.
Right
Or,
there. That definitely shows the will behind it.
yeah.
But how did Arabic manage to become the connector? I mean, you had scholars from different places, different religions.
Yeah.
How did it bridge those divides?
That's actually one of the most interesting parts. The language itself sort of became this neutral ground for intellectual work. The community of scholars in Baghdad, and later, in places like Cairo, Cordoba, Samarkand, it was incredibly diverse. The sources are clear on this. You had Muslim, Christian, and Jewish scholars all working together, side by side, translating, debating, writing commentaries.
So Arabic became the professional language.
Exactly. It was the essential language. If you were serious about science or philosophy, no matter your background or your faith, it unified the intellectual effort.
And the timing here is just crucial, isn't it? This massive preservation project.
Mm-hmm.
It's happening right when Europe, after the fall of Rome, is in what we often call the Dark Ages, a period of, well, significant intellectual decline in many areas.
That contrast is stark. It really is. While a lot of classical knowledge was being lost or forgotten in the West, scholars writing in Arabic were meticulously preserving the core texts of antiquity.
People like Aristotle.
Aristotle, Ptolemy, Galen, Euclid, the foundations. But here's the key thing. It wasn't just passive preservation. They weren't just staring scrolls in a library.
Right, that's the next step, isn't it? Once they saved all this knowledge, once it was available in Arabic, what do they actually do with it?
They started working on it immediately, correcting it, studying it, adding annotations, expanding on it. This is where you see the real intellectual jump.
So they didn't just accept these ancient texts as perfect.
Not at all. They respected them hugely, but they used them as a foundation, a starting point. They tested them, questioned them.
Could you give an example? Like, how did they go beyond someone established, like, say, Galen in medicine?
Okay, Galen's a great example. His knowledge of anatomy was the standard for, 1,000 years? But it had flaws. Big ones,
Yeah.
because Roman custom often restricted human dissection.
Right, so he based it on animals.
Exactly. Mostly pigs and Barbary apes. So scholars writing in Arabic, figures like Ibn Sina or Al-Razi, they used actual observation, empirical methods. They challenged Galen's findings based on what they actually saw. They corrected fundamental anatomical errors.
And Ibn Sina's work, the canon of medicine, that became the standard, didn't it?
For centuries, it systematized pretty much all known medical knowledge at the time, incorporating Greek, Persian, Indian, and their own discoveries. It became the medical textbook across the world, including in Europe later on.
Okay, that leads us right into the language itself, the linguistic legacy. This is where, like you said, it's hiding in plain sight for us today. We're literally speaking Arabic sometimes when we talk science, and we don't even know it.
Yeah, this is the real aha moment, I think. The language wasn't just the container for the knowledge, it actually shaped the terminology. Think about algebra.
Algebra, okay. Where'd that come from?
Directly from the title of a book by the mathematician Al-Khwarizmi. His book was Kitab al-Jabr wa Luqabala.
Al-Jab. But what does that actually mean, Al-Jab?
It literally means something like the restoring or the completion of broken parts.
Okay.
In math, it referred to the process of moving a negative term from one side of an equation to the other side, making it positive. You're sort of restoring the balance, uniting the parts. It's a perfect description for balancing an equation.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And algorithm. That sounds like his name.
It is. Algorithm is just a Latinized version of Al-Khwarizmi's name. It's a direct nod to his work in setting out systematic, step-by-step procedures for calculations.
Wow, yeah. And there are others, right? Like alkaline?
Yep, from alkali, meaning the ash. And in astronomy, words like zenith, nadir, azimuth. The language itself was encoding the concepts, defining the field.
So it wasn't just translating. It was creating the very vocabulary of science, setting the standards globally.
Absolutely. This whole scientific ecosystem operating in Arabic, it wasn't just making dictionaries. It was producing these towering figures whose work became essential reading everywhere.
Let's maybe zero in on a couple more of those standard setters.
Yeah.
Because their work shows the sheer breadth of what was happening.
Sure. Take optics. Ibn al-Haytham, known as Al-Hazan in Latin. His major work, the Kitab al-Manazir, or Book of Optics, completely changed how we understand vision.
How so? What was the old idea?
Well, the dominant Greek theory from Euclid and Ptolemy was that our eyes emitted rays, like beams, that hit objects, and that's how we saw them.
Okay.
Ibn al-Haytham used rigorous experiments, really, an early form of the scientific method to prove that's wrong. He showed light actually travels from the object into the eye.
Through experiments.
Yes. Controlled experiments. His work basically launched modern optics. It even led to the development of the camera obscura. He didn't just preserve Ptolemy's optics, he fundamentally corrected it.
Okay, that's huge. What about surgery? You mentioned that earlier.
Right, Al-Zarawi. He worked in Cordoba in Andalusia. Yeah. He published a massive encyclopedia of medicine, Al-Tasrif. One volume was dedicated entirely to surgery.
And what was special about it?
It described over 200 surgical instruments, scalpels, saws, forceps, specula, many of which he designed himself. It had detailed illustrations. It covered procedures like cauterization, setting fractures, even dentistry and obstetrics.
Incredible detail.
So detailed, so advanced for its time, that the Latin translation of this surgical section remained the standard surgical textbook in European universities for something like 500 years.
500 years. The sheer staying power is just hard to grasp.
It is. And remember, because Arabic was the shared scientific language, this knowledge spread.
Right, the lingua franca aspect. It connected people across huge distances.
That was the oil in the engine, really. Think about it. A scholar in Cairo in the 10th century, maybe studying astronomy, could read a cutting-edge treatise written by someone in Samarkand, thousands of miles east in Central Asia, or by someone in Cordoba, Spain, far to the west.
Directly. No translation needed.
No translation needed. They were all writing and reading in the same highly technical scientific Arabic. This created this vast, unified intellectual community. It meant discoveries and ideas could travel and be built upon much faster than ever before. It spanned continents.
So, okay, we have this incredible period, 7 centuries. Knowledge saved, corrected, advanced, spread globally, all primarily in Arabic.
Which brings us to the next big shift, Europe's intellectual revival. How did Europe reconnect with all this knowledge?
Yeah, this is the crucial handover, the bridge moment. And it often gets, well, maybe simplified. Europe didn't just suddenly invent advanced math or science in the 12th or 13th century out of nowhere.
It wasn't spontaneous generation.
Not at all. It rediscovered and absorbed this knowledge by turning directly to the Arabic sources. This happened mainly through places where cultures met, like Spain, especially Toledo after its reconquest in Sicily.
So the revival wasn't purely internal. It was fueled by a massive influx of information from the Arabic tradition.
Precisely. As the first European universities started popping up, Paris, Bologna, Oxford,
Where did they get their textbooks?
they started translating. They commissioned translations of these essential Arabic scientific and philosophical works into Latin. And these translations weren't just supplementary reading. That
They became the core curriculum, the foundational texts. If you wanted to study medicine, you had to read Ibn Sinai's canon in Latin. If you wanted to study advanced mathematics, you needed al-Khwarizmi's work on algebra. For optics, it was Ibn al-Haytham. This Arabic-derived knowledge was higher education in Europe for centuries.
you can see the direct lines then to some of the big names in Western thought.
Oh, absolutely. The sources showed direct reliance. Take Thomas Aquinas, the giant of medieval philosophy who tried to synthesize Christian theology with Aristotelian logic.
Right.
He heavily relied on the detailed commentaries and logical frameworks developed by Muslim philosophers like Al-Farabi and Ibn Sina, known in Latin as Avicenna. He quotes them. Their interpretations of Aristotle, translated from Arabic, were essential to his own project.
And this extends even further into the period we call the scientific revolution itself. People like Copernicus.
Copernicus is a fascinating case. We credit him, rightly, with the heliocentric model, but his work didn't come out of a vacuum. He knew of, cited, and built upon mathematical techniques and planetary models developed by astronomers working centuries earlier in the Islamic world. Specifically, astronomers from places like the Maraga Observatory in Persia. These scholars, writing in Arabic, had already developed sophisticated non-Ptolemaic models of planetary motion, challenging aspects of the old system long before Copernicus. He used some of their mathematical innovations.
So the synthesis here, the really deep point, is that the scientific revolution, the very birth of modern Western science, it stands on the shoulders of this 700-year scientific tradition conducted in Arabic.
That's the fundamental takeaway, I think. It wasn't just a holding pattern. It was active preservation, correction, innovation, and advancement. For 7 long centuries, Arabic truly was the indispensable engine of global science. It provided the concepts, the terms, the data, the methods, the whole framework that later developments, including in Europe, absolutely depended on. It really underscores how knowledge transfer, not just isolated genius, drives progress.
That really does shift the perspective. Okay, so let's recap the main points for everyone listening. 3 big takeaways, maybe.
Sounds good.
First, Arabic was the key language for this massive project of preserving ancient knowledge, Greek, Indian, Persian, but also correcting and adding to it, especially while Europe was less focused on scholarship.
Right. Preservation plus advancement.
Second, the language itself became foundational. It gave us core scientific vocabulary we still use constantly: algebra, algorithm, alkalane, zenith. The list goes on.
Embedded in our scientific DNA, so to speak.
And third, maybe most importantly, it served as the global scientific lingua franca. It knitted together scholars across vast distances for over half a millennium, creating a unified scientific community.
Exactly. A 700-year run as the world's primary language of science.
This whole deep dive really highlights how knowledge gets passed on, translated, transformed, and how crucial that circulation is. How ideas developed in one language can lay the groundwork for breakthroughs centuries later, somewhere else entirely.
It really does. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it? If one language was the main engine for science for 700 years back then, what's serving that role today? Or maybe what will be the key medium or mechanism for translating, preserving, defining the science of the next century or the next 700 years?
That's a provocative thought to end on. What foundations are being laid right now? Maybe in computer code, maybe in data, maybe in a language we don't even fully recognize as scientific yet. What work happening today will only be fully understood or appreciated centuries from now. Definitely something to think about.
Food for thought.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it gave you a new perspective. We'll catch you next time.